welcome back to my channel. I haven't filmed a sit-down video in a really long time, and I know that for a lot of people we tend to order on Amazon really frequently these days. I decided to take it upon myself to try 11 different of Amazon's most popular matcha powders and let you guys know which I think are the absolute best of the best. I'm going to be going through the products from the worst matcha powders to the best matcha powders. When it comes to the criteria for judging matcha powders, I look at several different factors. The first factor is, of course, as we all know, the actual shade of green. For most matcha powders, the brighter and more vibrant green it is, the better quality that it actually tends to be. If you're finding matcha powders that are a little bit more yellow or even skewing on the brown side, then you know that those are second or third picked leaves, and they're probably not going to be of a higher grade and a higher quality, and those would be better reserved for cooking or other culinary experiences, but definitely not for drinking and not for any sort of usucha or koicha types of matcha. The next thing that I also look for is fragrance. For a lot of high quality matchas, they often have a very grassy, almost citrusy scent. I'm also looking for texture. Some matcha powders are a little bit too gritty, some are really fine, and the texture is really important because the texture of the matcha also helps to determine how the matcha froths. In general, really high quality matcha powders tend to froth with really small bubbles on the surface if you whisk it correctly. And of course, last but not least, the most important thing when it comes to matcha powders is the taste. So I made sure to taste test these in the usucha way of making matcha, which is a higher ratio of water to matcha powder. And I also taste tested these with my latte. So without further ado, let's get into the best and the worst matcha powders on Amazon. So the worst product out of all the 11 that I've tried is this Pure Chimp matcha green tea. First thing that I noticed that immediately was a red flag is that matcha powder is kind of akin to coffee. You definitely don't want to leave this in warm temperatures or with the sun because it could affect the quality of the matcha powder over time. Also with matcha, it oxidizes when it's exposed to the air, so it's important to keep it in a really tightly sealed container. This kind of container is a glass container, so first of all, that makes it really susceptible to any sunlight. Besides just the packaging, when it comes to taste, this was by far the worst, and it really surprised me because this had thousands of really positive reviews on Amazon. When I taste tested this Pure Chimp matcha, it had a very, very bitter and odd aftertaste. This matcha powder has literally no scent. It smells like nothing, and it's also really, really chunky, so this matcha powder does have to be sifted. The color is okay, it's not bad, but it does skew more on the yellow side. Another red flag about this product is that it is so inexpensive. I believe this jar costs only $15, and high quality matcha powder should never ever be this inexpensive. I would not recommend this. The next matcha powder that I taste tested was Pantene matcha. This matcha was really not good. There is absolutely like no scent or fragrance. Yeah, it smells like nothing. And when I taste tested this, it had a very weird, almost like an expired aftertaste. It tastes like milk when it's gone bad, and it has that sort of sour, just very bitter aftertaste, and that's what this tastes like. It was honestly really disgusting, and it really just did not sit well with me. I would not recommend this. The next product I'm going to talk about is Matcha Moon. This is ultra premium organic matcha, ceremonial grade for sipping and savoring. There's a very, very slight scent. Again, I dislike this packaging because this kind of packaging, although it is airtight, it's very easy to come out on and off. It had a slightly bitter aftertaste, and it just wasn't that smooth. Color-wise though, it's not bad. It's a pretty nice shade of green, and the powder is fairly fine, so again, didn't need sifting, but the taste, it was too bitter. The next brand that I'll be talking about is Matcha Wellness. So this is an organic matcha, ceremonial grade green tea powder. I know that some of these products are organic and some are not. Sometimes organic matcha powders can actually skew a little bit yellow versus non-organic matcha powders. It's up to you whether you want to consume organic or inorganic. Personally, for me, I don't really have a preference. I care most about the aftertaste, and I care most about the smoothness and the complexity of the matcha versus whether it's organic or not. So for Matcha Wellness, this has a slight fragrance. It's like a slight sweet kind of citrusy scent. It's not really strong or anything really notable. This also has a lighter color, so it's not as bright green. What's nice about this matcha powder is that it is fine enough so that you don't have to sift it. But unfortunately, this also has a weird taste. There's no bitter aftertaste for this one, which is why it's better than the previous ones that I've mentioned. But upon the first taste, there was a little bit of like a weird sourness, like a weird bitterness again. And although there was no aftertaste, aftertaste, my initial reaction was really not that pleasant. The next matcha that I'm going to be talking about is again a flop. I have not yet gotten into the matcha powders that I've really actually enjoyed. This one is the Uji Fine Matcha. So for those of you who don't know, Uji is a region in Kyoto in Japan that is really well known for their matcha. Although I know a lot of people gravitate towards Uji matcha because of the name and the brand, I just want to let you know that sometimes it is a marketing tactic, and there are some matchas from other areas of Japan like Kagoshima, and those are just as good, if not better, than some matchas that are labeled Uji matcha. The problem with this is that the powder is literally so fine that it just flies everywhere. This packaging also kind of sucked because when I would close it, there was a hole. I don't know if you guys could see that, but there was like a puff of matcha that came out because down here there's actually a hole in the tin can, and so anytime you close it, like matcha powder would just come spewing out. The taste was okay, it wasn't anything mind-blowing, but because the powder was just so fine, it was too watery. Now we're kind of getting into the matcha powders that are passable. So the next product I'll be talking about is Matcha Bar. What's surprising to me about this is that although it is labeled ceremonial, the color is actually quite yellow compared to all of the other ones that I've tried. And because it is quite yellow, I wouldn't say it's a very high quality grade of matcha. Although it is labeled ceremonial grade, I would say that this actually might skew more towards the culinary level, which then implies that you are not getting your money's worth. There's a slightly like lemony, fruity smell. I just think that for the cost of this tin, there are much better matcha powders on the market, and I don't suggest that you waste your money getting this because of the color and the taste. It just wasn't rich enough, and there wasn't a strong enough matcha flavor. The next product that I'll be talking about is the Jade Leaf Organic Japanese Matcha Tea House Edition Ceremonial Grade. The smell is actually quite fragrant. It's a more complex smell. There's a little bit of a nuttier scent along with the citrusy fragrance. It's definitely more complex in terms of scent compared to the other matchas that I tried. This one is pretty smooth. Actually, there's no bitter aftertaste, which is a plus for me. The color is also very good. It's a nice bright green, and I also love this style of packaging, this kind of screw-on lid, so it keeps it airtight. For me personally, this just wasn't strong enough in terms of matcha flavor, and it just wasn't rich enough for the kinds of matcha that I enjoy. We are down to the last four, or what you could say are my top 4 favorite matcha powders from Amazon. So this one is Chalite. Chalite? I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce this. Again, really nice scent. Also in terms of color, has a more rich, like a darker green color than the previous matcha. Although this was quite smooth, I will say that it had a slightly bitter aftertaste and it was slightly powdery. There are some matcha powders out there that have almost like a chalky aftertaste. This isn't quite chalky, but I will say that the aftertaste is a little bit powdery. It had a pretty strong matcha flavor, and it's fine enough where you don't have to sift it, which is nice. So the third best matcha powder that I tried is this Kyoto Do Matcha Organic Japanese Matcha Green Tea Premium Ceremonial Grade. Compared it to this one, the Chalite, the Kyoto Do does not have as strong of a fragrance. It is much lighter. This also has a very, very strong matcha taste. The Kyoto Do also has a very fine powder, which means that you don't have to sift this, and it is also really smooth. Color-wise, it is a nice shade of like a darker green. For me, the reason why this comes in third place is that although it is smooth, there's no bitter aftertaste. Because the texture is a little bit more fine, the matcha actually ends up being a little bit more watery, so it's not the best, but it is pretty good considering the price point and the flavor profile and the complexity. I do wish that the aroma was a little bit more fragrant, but you know, this matcha is not bad. Coming up on our finale here, so my second most favorite matcha powder here on Amazon is going to be the Pure Matcha Premium Japanese Ceremonial Tea. This is actually really quite good. It has a very, very complex scent. It is almost creamy smelling. It kind of just has a very pleasant grassy smell. It's very bright, it's very refreshing. In terms of color, great shade of green, very bright. In terms of texture, this is a little bit more gritty, so that does mean that you actually do have to sift this when you make your matcha, otherwise you'll end up with clumps. And so I know everyone is different, but for me personally, I dislike it when my matcha powders are not fine enough to the point where I have to sift it, because, you know, making matcha is actually quite a process. You know, you need your water to be a certain temperature, temperature, then you have to whisk it with a bamboo whisk. It's kind of laborious. And so if I can eliminate any steps in the process to make the drink making process any faster, of course I would love to do that. So personally, I don't love matchas that require sifting, which is why this is a second place for me. However, the taste is very good, very smooth, no bitter aftertaste, also has a pretty strong matcha flavor, so it's actually a really good quality matcha. So in first place, out of all of the matcha powders that I've tried, this also happens to be the most expensive in terms of cost per gram. So in number one place with the best flavor, the best texture, the best fragrance is going to be ta-ding! This is the Harai no Mukashi matcha from Ippudo Tea. It's in a 20-gram tin, so it is smaller than all of the other matchas that I have mentioned. All of those were 30-gram tins, which is fairly standard in the matcha industry when we talk about, you know, starter sizes for matcha tins. Oh my god, it's the most fragrant. It has the most complex scent. It has a very creamy, almost vanilla scent mixed with grassy and citrusy notes. When you smell it, it is definitely... Oh my god. It just smells so good. So in terms of packaging, you know, not my favorite. Really strong matcha flavor, great taste. Very, very complex, but also smooth tasting. No bitter aftertaste. And when you taste it, you can taste astringency, you can taste creaminess. It has an almost umami-like flavor. It's just incredibly delicious and very, very smooth. So this will definitely be my number one choice in terms of matcha. And just as a bonus, I have mentioned in my previous video that I also really love Matcha Sense's product, and it is also free shipping on their website. So I'll also put that in the link down below along with a discount code that I have with them. And Matcha Sense also happens to sell on Amazon as well. I will be sure to post many more videos on my YouTube channel, and I will also be moving very soon to a new state for work, which is very exciting. So of course I will be giving you guys an apartment tour. I'm very excited for what's to come in the next 2 months of my life, and of course I'll be bringing you guys along with me. That is all that I have for you guys for today's video. Thank you guys so much for listening to me ramble on and on and on. And make sure you guys follow me on my social media. My Instagram is at MareHeartsU, and my Twitter, which is at Meredith Mao, for behind the scenes of what I'm doing when I'm not making YouTube videos. Also, actually, have a second Instagram now, which is at Munchies with Mare, where I post a lot of my food content. I do food reviews. I also do recipe videos. If you guys are also fellow foodies, then make sure you check out my food Instagram account. Please comment down below any other videos you guys would like to see on my channel. And that's all that I have for you guys for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!
Wayward is my fickle heart. Where would I be if it weren't for your grace, your strength?